Well, good afternoon and welcome to the January 2023 Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium monthly reading. This is our first reading in the new year, and I'm Bob Nielsen, your host for these readings, along with some of my fellow hosts, Jennifer and Kent, who are here with us, and some others who can't be with us. The consortium, as some of you may know, is an affiliation of poets centered originally here in the Monterey Bay area, and along with its predecessors has been giving readings for over 30 years. We believe we're the oldest continuing reading and sharing group in this area. We carry on a tradition that was started by the National Writers Union and people before it, the National Writers Union being a local union that was here. John Lowy was the head of the local, and he's the instigator and the person who founded the consortium. We consider him to be the dean of the consortium. Our consortium leader and coordinator is Kent Leatham, who's here with us today. We are on Facebook at Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium, and we also have our own YouTube channel, and I would urge you to subscribe to the channel. This is our 34th Zoom-based reading, which is quite something. We're coming up on the 3rd year anniversary of this. We're connecting now with poets, not only in our region, but around the country and overseas, which is one of the wonderful consequences of being able to Zoom in the pandemic. So in these turbulent times, we're able to get together, and we're experiencing the world as it's shaped and given to us through the lens of poetry. These times that are difficult, we've got everything going on, weather, an amazing gavotte being danced in the House of Representatives over the last week. And so what we get to do today is to lean back, forget about this stuff, and focus on poetry from two wonderful poets we have before us, Linda Ravenswood and Marc Zegans. Each of our poets is going to present for 20 to 25 minutes, and I would invite you then to sit back now, enjoy a cup of tea, glass of wine, snack, merry nightcap, whatever is fitting your time zone, and let's just enjoy the time together. Our poets are Linda Ravenswood, as I mentioned, and Marc Zegans. Linda's going to read first, and then Marc will read. And I will ask you all, if you're not, to stay muted, and we will now get going. Linda is an Oxford Prize winner in poetry. She's in Los Angeles. She's also the current Edwin Markham Prize in poetry recipient. Was selected by the former U.S. Poet Laureate Emeritus Juan Felipe Herrera. She received her higher education at CalArts in Southern California, got a BFA in 2007, and then an MA at Mount St. Mary's College in 2009, and she has a PhD ABD from Pacifica Graduate Institute in 2014. So busy time in school. Her arts practices include collaboration, teaching, and curating arts events and publications. She's founding editor-in-chief of the Los Angeles Press, and I'd urge you to go onto their website. It's very good, and it also has some interesting biographical notes on Linda, her multi-generational history of being in a family of teachers and folks resident here in California. Linda is celebrated in the US and the UK for a branching perspective on women's stories of migration and immigration in the West. Her new collection, Cantadora, Letters from California, is to be released this month. We on schedule, Linda, for that?
Absolutely, January 29th.
All right, folks, you heard it here. Among her other recent projects, Linda is the founder of the Poet Laureate program in Glendale, California, and she introduces the renewed Poets Cafe on KPFX in Los Angeles, Wednesday at 2 o'clock. That sort of went moribund for a while, didn't it?
It was, yeah, for a couple of years.
Yeah, and you helped revive it. That's wonderful. Okay, Linda, it's all yours, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so very much, Monterey Bay Poets Consortium. I'm so excited to be here with Mark, my dear friend from the Poetry Brothel. Let's see. Gosh, that was such a kind introduction. I really appreciate that. Thanks a million. Why don't I start out with something kind of breezy for these blustery times. This is called The Dream of the Grass Blowing. It's the dream of the grass blowing. Someone says there are dames in pairs, we dance in pairs en Paris. A thin woman with the world arrayed around her because she's thin and able to be a horse in whore's clothes. They ride with her in the wind on the arm of the world. She says, "Here are my pears. You can take them if you want, but I'm going out, up to Portland, Oregon, where grass can blow along my Willamette. I'm going out to meet the day, no time to waste." Here's the poem that starts my collection, so kindly introduced. It's called Cantadora, Letters from California. It's coming out in a couple of days from I Wear London, the Black Spring Press Group. And this is the poem that starts the collection. It's called All the Bells of Mare Island. And that's where my grandfather was stationed during the Second World War. He installed sonar on in submarines, and prior to that he was and then until the end of his life, when the war ended and he went back to regular civilian duties, he had movie theaters all across the West. He worked with the Lemley folks, and he had a theater here in our town called the Montrose Theater. He had a theater that still exists in Portland, where a lot of my family is from, in Portland, Oregon, called the Clinton Theater, and it's still there. And we visited it recently, and it was so exciting to see. It's been changed a bit, but he had the restaurant downstairs, and it lived nearby, and it was wonderful that it's still going strong, the Clinton Theater. So this is sort of a strange little tale about my grandfather and his first daughter, and that's my mother, who celebrated her 83rd birthday a couple of days ago. This is called All the Bells of Mare Island. Mother's lungs, the way they slip in view on the X-ray screen, shoe and shoehorn, a soft satin bray against some Pacific coast, her body, nights full of stars, my grandfather holding her up and in and out of weeks so she would not die from whooping cough. His warm Scots-Irish hands against her back, the soft clothes of the 1940s, all the bells of Mare Island, and fog along the Farallones. It was the Second World War and the rubber drive. Their house stayed on blocks all the way from Oregon, so my father could wire sonar for the ships in San Francisco Bay. They all pulled together to get into the black, her lungs so scarred, some San Andreas fault lines, her veins. They said she would pull through. For what? For what? For what? This is the poem that was so generously chosen for the Oxford Prize this year. It's called Elementary School, and it owes a lot to one of my most cherished poets, Bridget Pegeen Kelly, and her poem Song. just resonates so very much with me and rides along with me all the time. So this is elementary school. There was a goat's head hanging by ropes in a tree, she said. You have to forgive men. I immediately wanted to say for how long, but I knew she'd say it's a process and a cycle, that we have to thank them for wheels and the trips to CVS and the houses, that it's a balancing act for everything, everywhere, that marriage is about, in the end, coming to an agreement that you both need each other, especially as you get on in life. 3 husbands, 4 husbands, lots of sons. The song of the nightbird, she said. You know, they say it's something men are, like it's what boys do. Something comes over them. Maybe it's a little bit biology. Maybe it's a little bit dark anatomy. They just don't know why they did it. They were in a group of them. It was like a cloud. They all saw red or black or some color. It's built into society to forgive them, to punish them hard and then forgive them, to punish them hard and never forgive them. It's built in. You have to say sorry and you have to mean it. Cried like a man and struggled hard, she said. Even a woman recognizes the struggles of a man. Even a woman talking about murderous intent of children who happen to be young men in the making. Even there, a sweet song of forgiveness shocks the night with its beauty and tenderness, the sweetness of I'm sorry. Everybody cries for a man, the man you lost, the man you never knew. And would you be surprised to know your own father had a dungeon, not a metaphorical dungeon, but a dungeon where he did things that men do, things he needs to be forgiven for, things he will be forgiven for, songs he'll sing to be forgiven for, the way his song goes on forever, when his song is a cry for forgiveness for the things men do. Here's a new poem called Train Rising Out of the Ocean. Train rising out of the ocean, bird pouring out of our mouth, airplane coursing an embouchure of volcano, lava spooling spaghetti marinara, an arm reaching near heaven, a good razor in the curtain of night, a drag doll on roller skates delivering hamburgers, a tray moon shredding down antipasto, pine needles breaking to choir song, soft chimneys detaching in rounds on Los Feliz. We pour out of houses, dancing, made pizza on the pavement, the hottest day in December. Armenian children sing songs of Yerevan, Glendale, murked, and everyone nodded. Jewish women pulled hamantashen from their handbags, and people laughed and licked the center jam. Granddad gave birth to lollipops, and everyone voted. We remembered how to write in cursive. The dead pulled on their blankets, stopped shivering, and ate the best meal of the whole ghost walk. Angels and mollusks released ocean liners from their eyes and slept. Piano islands darted from shore like young girls out of their parents' houses, and plague was one for the books. In old library rooms, they beamed at history, something we talked about. didn't dare say disruption or panic. They called it our necessary pause that brought us here and almost somehow home. This is a new piece called My Father's Eyes in the Slow Time Gravity of Kelp Beds. And Papa, I love you and do not regret the places we never ran. You were with me on the courts in Los Feliz, over glyphs and the Mulholland swank down you draped across dunes. There's no knot in my language when I see the places you dwelt. And Papa, I love you. Your eyes are closed like Georgia O'Keeffe's Shell Number 2. My breath on you, a feather whisper, wondering if you're in Burbank or in the cloud, or the room of a child, some other portico, by a plaster Maria. We say 10 Marias, 12 Marias, 18 Marias for my father, gone down to the place of shells and water and green things swaying. Even in the bracken, Papa, I love you. Your eyes are the dust of La Ribera, where the ancestors bent and fished by La Salina. I love you for things you did knowingly, unknowingly, intrinsically in your DNA. How I love the blood and bones of you and the remnants of you in your cashmere under the earth. You kept goats and now are kept by them on your hill. And Papa, remember the goat's head, severed but singing in the trees? Was it wind climbing through? Everywhere you are is a ram and a goat. Everywhere you are is the lamb and sheep bed down in earth. Papa, I have no regrets that I barely touched your hand before you were away. This is another poem that's brand new. It's called Suitcases. They've arrived. Naugahyde and polyurethane suitcases covered in cake and dish towels, airline tags, luggage octopi coiling the road off jetliners. They rolled in carrying the beaches of Tel Aviv in their hair, burned things in my mother's kitchen, split crazy hot dogs on our grill, and under each move bellowed how everything they did was perfect. And it was. They rolled with cooking sets and seltzer bottles, ugly clothes, and worse sandals, showing us how to be Jews in America. They never slept. They soaked in the jacuzzi, stayed in, played cards like for diamond aunties, drove the car like evolving off the side of their universe. They kept coming through seasons. Snug gatherings of some of them receded and other branches would rise. The survivors. They'd already sort of died, so none of our remnant had time to be sick, but bulldozed with everything ahead of them and we dialed up Fairfax and the Black Sea Restaurant, Cantor's Deli, Schwartz Bakery, and no one was on pills, just a little sensitive to noise, fingering wee European saccharin capsules like the heads of pins. This kept things sweet and sane. Every once in a while, they'd talk about how much money they'd had before the war, but consoled themselves with the state of Israel. Mount Carmel in the sun, wonderful. Buses, ice cream, and girls with machine guns. Everywhere, the armed youth off the Dizengoff slit their eyes to every corner, and everyone felt safe, finally. This was before we moved to Century City, before other groups of them came and left, and came again, and went home, and disagreed with my parents, and never came back, and made up and came again, and then never again. And it went in cycles of yes and no on transatlantic wires under oceans, in dark dreams, and then into the light, until they all disappeared like precious fog, vanished, singing their stories, and almost we pictured them in Valhalla. It was long ago, and even I wonder, was that me? Was that them? Or did I read it in a book? Was it part of a dream? What was that time between the 6 Days War and our pandemic? That green used to be time, open time, time of learning, soft Kirsch cheese and Nikon cameras, their airplane bag of history. What were those days, he cried in his gabardine. Oh, you were the last. Were you the last? Well, I think that's my time.
Thank you, Linda. That was absolutely beautiful, and I'm sure everyone joins with me and just we gotta look at the recording of this, and we've got to read these poems and have them again. Suitcases. What an amazing finale to a wonderful set of poems that you gave us, and the stories. I can just see what you're talking about, and more importantly, I think we can feel what you felt and what the folks in that poem and in all the others felt. And Mare Island, going way up to the beginning. Yes, your grandfather there in the war doing his bit, and the bells of Mare Island. I know that area, and yes. So thank you so much. It was just wonderful.
Thanks a million, Bob.
You're very welcome. Okay, well, let's keep the magic going here. Our next poet is Marc Zegans, and Marc is joining us from Silicon Valley. And where did he go? There he is. Hi, Marc.
Hi, Bob.
Marc has penned 7 collections of poems. Most recently, his book Lion Street with Bamboo Dart Press. Voila. It's a terrific book of poetry. It takes you back to a San Francisco that Marc grew up in, that I knew in the 50s and 60s, and lived over in the East Bay, came into the city, worked in the city. It's a wonderful excursion into not only Marc's background and Marc's life, but also into the life of San Francisco and the Bay Area in that time in our history. Marc's other works include The Snow Dead and Swizzle Felt's first folio, from the Typewriter Underground. And I'd urge you to connect with the Typewriter Underground and see what they're posting by way of emails and on Facebook. Marc has released 2 spoken word albums and has created and produced several immersive theatrical productions, including Sirens, Dreams, and a Cat, co-written with D. Lowell Wilder. And he's also created and produced many short films. Marc lives by the coast in Northern California, and we are delighted to have him with us. So Marc, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that warm and wonderful introduction, Bob. Linda, I was really, really moved by your reading. There was so much wonderful imagery in there, the ocean liners from the eyes, the suitcases, and your reference to Mare Island up by Vallejo brought back all kinds of memory. And the final poem really brought me to tears. It was just absolutely beautiful. And I'm choked up with emotion. It's hard to read after that, but I will do my very best. I'm going to read a cluster of poems from Lion Street, which is a love letter to San Francisco. My friend David Scott Ewers, a novelist, described it as a San Francisco of the mind. And I think that captures what I was trying to do, to put together a kind of concept album of San Francisco's life when I came of age, but its great sense of possibility and its subcultural vitality, which in many respects has been lost. And it's kind of a prayer that one day this may return. I'm going to read a series of poems just from the book and essentially read them through without much comment so that you can get a feel of the flow for the material. And there's one book in the middle, which I will pause for a moment to talk about, which is not from the book. And I'll explain why I'm sharing that as well. This first one is called Rigidity. High above the plunging hill, Jay sits facing empty glass, his room spare, a music stand, a chair, a sign, a sax, a silence, and curling sheets of noted lines falling. This is called Clearing. Eucalypt cut across my car as I bounded the curve at Lion and Broadway. Houses there are under construction always, over the sharp slant that dives before the bay. Empty places those, a spare light for the servants here, a garage light there, but no life. You need more house to empty out a life. I curve up the track at Presidio's edge, eucalyptus blooming, sharp, thick syrup vacating on a gust that blows across the empty corner at Pacific. A quiet fog filters lights from homes, a few with warm bodies. I drop down the hill. This is called Stone, and there's a little piece of Australia in it. Her husband had walked out 3 weeks before. She wore a denim jacket and stone pants when I helped her carry bags up the stairs into her kitchen with a round table, where she poured from a bottle of Shiraz, inking her lips, offering me a glass, her hand trembling a bit at the fingers. Long and precise, the hands of a dancer, which she had been on stage in Australia before she was cut from the corps de ballet and thrown from the rocks into the ocean that carried her north to California. And children with a man who made money by making clicks on a screen and shouting into a phone when some trader fucked him just before the closing bell in New York. 3 days later, her hair smelled of salt when she invited me to a movie after thinking about me on her walk just now along Bikers Beach. Come get me, she said, turning light, young now, as she crossed the lobby, looking back once more over her denim jacket and stone pants. At Major Pond's traveling Chautauqua on California and Divisadero, we met for drinks. Our faces changed in the 2 years gone, yours sinuous, calculating, and mine like a balloon skin with a pin pressed against it. I'm up for a fling, you said. A fling? Yes, a fling. I could see it penciled in your leather calendar. Fling with Marc, as if I had no choice in the matter. This poem is called Lupercalia, and it's the one not from Lion Street. The last live performance I did in San Francisco was at the Poetry Brothel, and Linda was emceeing that, her character, Suzette. And it was a celebration of Lupercalia, which is the ancient forerunner of Valentine's Day. The Lupercalian festival started in Greece and reached bloody, orgiastic heights in Rome. And so in reading this poem that I conceived for the event from the main stage, my idea was to imagine San Francisco on the cusp of what was about to be a lockdown, reborn as the ancient Rome, the seven-hilled city, which San Francisco is as well, and the festive fertility that happened there. And so this is the narrative of the fictive character who populates that space. On the night of the random coupling, before I drew your name from the clay jar and found you, legs spread, hanging by your feet from the second-story center window over the path to the house, lit like a burning moon. Your yelps and yowls flying over the Presidio wall, calling up yips and howls from packs of prowling coyotes. I ran naked up the panhandle, my lips dripping with the sap of goat figs, pendulous-breasted women throwing themselves in my path, begging to be stropped with the blood-matted, shaggy strips of goat flesh I had torn like a Lycaean pan from the sacrificial animal's back at the peak of Mount Sutro, once Parnassus. On the night of the random coupling, before I drew your name from the clay jar, I was called forth by the she-wolf goddess, out from all restraint, to stand witness to the rising of San Francisco as Lupercal, the seven-hilled rebirth in this drippingly fertile fibrua of California sexualis. Her head tilted to the rising moon, she summoned us from our vertical caves, our cell phones dropping with our torn clothes as we ran naked up Market Street, drawn by the living breath of Romulus to our Palatine and by Lupercus to Arcadian places more ancient, and raised our goat blood-filled glasses to Bacchus. On the night of the random coupling in a whisted glen, deep in Golden Gate Park, under moon-shimmered leaves, the clay pot offered raised high by a throng of Luperci, brothers and sisters of the wolf. I drew by lottery the pulsing shard that rent my hand and tore open my heart, driving me through the clutch of infertiles, out past the avenues and alphabet streets, to the house by the Presidio wall, north of Lake, where you dangled from your wood-framed window, your torn cotton blouse open, precious stones swinging from your neck, enticing and raw, the moment before you turned and dropped into my arms, my clawed hand raking your hair as we bit and scratched, drawing blood with each kiss. Jumping the wall, tearing through the old base, then west beyond Seacliff, up to Dead Man's Point, where off the mudded trail, mashed against a tree, airborne again, your legs wrapped around my back. We barked and howled over to the headlands as I moved fierce inside you, your hips heaving, your lips humming the old Wynoni Harris tune. Keep on shoinin' till the butter comes. Keep on shoinin' till the butter comes. And back to Lion Street. On the third floor of the Driscoll on Broderick and Pacific, your vintage French silk robe opened and fell with a resigned shrug, as if to say, I know now is my time to go, but I'm here for the asking. I have nothing left to hide. And I could see in your watered eyes the history of Spain and the Sephardic marks of generations held under Marano's spell, your iron black hair banding your breasts in stuttered light. This one is called Dim Sum Until 11, a fine and treasured San Francisco tradition. Lee Hu served fresh killed fish long before Fountain Park, with its Hong Kong style and fancy decor open down the block. Lee Hu served dim sum cheap, always did. Fountain Court did not. Fountain Court did not. Lee Hu has fluorescent lights, cheap beat to shit chairs, an upstairs banquet room never used except as a pass-through to the urinal. Fountain Court had its fish swimming in a beautiful tank. Li Hu does not. Fountain Court was full of people, well-heeled and boisterous. Li Hu is not. Li Hu is nearly empty all the time. Or perhaps large groups are simply swallowed in its cavernous upper room. Li Hu's waiters communicate nothing and understand less. Fountain Court's waiters were friendly, knowledgeable, and courteous. Fountain Court is empty all the time. Its tables and chairs gone, its fixtures stripped from the walls, a cardboard for lease in the plate window facing Clement Street. My family first went to Li Hu. We then journeyed to China West, long gone, then to Fountain Court. Now back to Li Hu. Fountain Court, says the waiter. Oh, they closed. Price is too high. He delivers the wrong dish and disappears. This is called Unclasped. It's set at a beautiful place called Steep Ravine, which is north of San Francisco, facing the ocean, a few minutes short of Stinson Beach. And back in the day, the only way to get in there was to go to the Pantol Ranger Station on Mount Tam and ask the ranger for the code to the padlock that locked the gate down. These days, it's got reservations through the state. It's booked years in advance. It's very, very different. But this is about a time when I stayed down at Steep Ravine. At Steep Ravine, I took you in to surf, your fear breaking faster than the hard waves, spit and sparkle, lips, teeth, lids, and brown hair bouncing as you jumped in the shore break. Waves rising, dancing round your thighs, foaming. I took your hand in the hollow between two curls and led you to deeper waters. You look back to shore, scanning for your boy, a thin line of love tethering you to shore. You would not go beyond the second break. The line, a kite string too long, would be cut if you ducked with me into the black swell. Your arm extended, holding me, fingers unclasping slowly, at last releasing, as I turned my young back to your kind face, diving into the cold, quiet beneath. I watched back 20 years tonight, sitting on a suede bar stool at Solstice, drinking soda water in the place once Major Pond's traveling Chautauqua, full of funky Victorian couches and pitted floorboards, where double whiskeys flew down my throat, poured sloppy and delivered free by the waitress, who called my name, me too blind to see. I watched back 20 years as I stared past the too fine, too slick decor, the ethereal quasi-musicians playing their astral grind, to when the Majors was a blues joint with a whorehouse upright piano, and same said waitress used to let me tonk up the place on weeknights when the band was off. I watched back 20 years as I looked at the well-dressed folk sitting in the candlelit booths by the window, where once Rassless jazz hopped and bopped, and before that, just the dusty sounds of creaky night music at the Majors. I watched back 20 years drinking soda water, thinking, how do I gentle this old body that I rode so hard? Can I freshen that up? Said the chunky young man behind the over-polished bar. Huh? Can I put some soda water on top of that ice and lime you've got there? No thanks. I watched back 20 years, chewing ice, missing the rough, scuffed bar, its pits and its dents, the scuffed and broken tables, random thrift store chairs, torn red couch velvet, and my sweet black-topped waitress who emptied the owner's pockets into my glass, standing me to round after round on those, for her, empty nights. I watched back 20 years, slid from my stool, swept round the joint the long way, and made my way for its still bowed door, and smiled, knowing that we had changed places, Solstice and I. She was clean and bright and slick and new, and I'd become the trusty old rough and scuffed place of my youth, carrying now with me what I once needed place to establish. Anyone who was in any way connected to the San Francisco subculture and music and poetic life spent a lot of time in North Beach at one point or another in their lives. That's where I learned to write. And so this is what I call a double sonnet with a flavor shot paying to Old North Beach. Tonight, I'm a mourner for when the Keystone Corner was on Vallejo. When I heard Art Blakey play and Denny Zeitlin say, I'm going to do a little number with Charlie Hayden on the bass. Tonight, I turn and remember the Spaghetti Factory 1 December, flamenco dancers stomping in the back, ruffled dresses, black heels going clack against the faded floor. Memory of Paramore fading in the mist, of the one I kissed at the Savoy Tivoli, now only reverie. Lost in the Grand Street bustle, a schlock shop hustle across from the postcard store, selling remembrances of Evermore in the land where jackalopes play, giant bunnies hop away, Edgerton's bullets stop, they say. As I try to grapple with what was that's actual and what's at best loose smoke curling at the old Trieste. I tossed my heart in the gutter down unpulped by suckers' liquors when the angel dust high dealer's baseball bat shattered my friend's arm like crushed peppermint candies. You know, the red and white starburst in the clear cellophane wrappers they serve on restaurant hostess stands to cover steak and whiskey breath. He was so high, that skinny kid. He didn't know he had no arm until he tried to pull the door on the shotgun side. Said, I think he's going to kill me if we stay. This is called Final Impressions of a Dying Man. It's a longer poem. The clavicle's massive under sunken skin, moist, mottled, loose, depressing into space, unmuscled. The forehead wide and discolored, reflects sorry gray light from the unfaced window. Buena Vista, if only you'd look. Thoracic spine crustacean curled, each vertebra distinct, popping back, exiting your body, organs dropping, a pooling mass splayed across immobile legs. When I touch your back, all I feel is bone and sadness. When I touch your stubbled cheek, I feel more. Falling skin, not quite clammy, large watered eyes rolling in their sockets, sucking breath, warm air on the release. You know I've come to say goodbye. We both know you will wait to die until I have returned to my place, not my home, and that you will die alone in this place, not your home. Funny that you and I both misplaced, and we know it as I take you in, you and your few. You have steadfastly declined for near 7 years, making no concession to the place where you will end. And so I rub your shoulders and feel the wool of your warm sweater pill in my hands. Your voice distant and alert as I draw your pain into my fingers, bounces through empty ribs. It rises with questions, falls with answers, and flows with half-remembered stories until the sun drops and the room fills with storm gray. You lift your head as I say goodbye, kissing you once on the cheek and once on the forehead, rubbing back your limp white hair. I go clumsy to the door, smelling the dust of unclean commercial carpet, and turn in the crack, see bone and sadness merging into night. Then a tooth and a smile, a softening around the lips, and that is all. This is called Less Than Burlesque. In high school, we go down to the Condor, where Carol Doda's electric nipples flash high above the corner at Broadway in Columbus, crossroads of Old North Beach. I saw her once descend from the ceiling atop a chipped white baby grand piano and spin her tassels, crazy propellers, in opposite directions while B-girls pumped sailors and conventioneers for drinks. We knew those girls and would lounge arms across their bare shoulders, drinking Cuba Libras until clusters of corpulent marks would stumble into the joint and the girls would slip away, teetering on lucite. We counted ourselves lucky bumming drinks from strippers in cum-stained San Francisco, drag queens strutting above Enrico's, tranny whores dishing dirt at Clown Alley. And all this seemed innocent in the year before Reagan and the coming of AIDS, carnival life on the Barbary Shore, a perfect fate that this was forever as we ambled across Broadway down Columbus, turned into Specs, the Adler Museum and Ocularium, drank Anchor Steam, climbed the secret stairs to Apple and Eve, saw the dancing girl with welts on her thighs, and realized all this was not just play. I'm going now to the low register and my cabinet of memories, digging through faded folders laden with silt, looking for a particular moment on a given night, days after Christmas, more than 30 years ago, when she and I ran Ocean Beach waterline at 3 a.m., her spiked heels resting on the crumbling concrete seawall, her debutante dress soft wet from the spray, her shoulder-length blonde hair gathering in strings as if she was running back to the sea, not rising from it. I did not know all was in question as she stopped, panting, draping her foggy arms over my shoulders as she licked my neck, my hand caressing her sea-watered soft breast underneath her debutante dress. This is called Dead Man's Point. It's the furthest western point in San Francisco, and it's now been closed off by the Parks Commission because the edge of the cliff there is falling away, as is the point itself. And this is a poem of return to that place, ducking under the barrier and going to the place out to which I had walked many, many, many times when I was young. Dead Man's Point is now closed to hikers. I went past the barrier up the old dust hill, finding happily at the top the low, sprawled, knotty tree, hard-knuckled against the winds that had swept men from the cliffs. Air flows below the roots, soil dug out, eroded, dust in an empty hand. It is so far gone, this place, the thin spine to the point brought low, no longer an enticement to walk out and test your luck with the gods. This once strong place crumbles at my foot. If I wander further out, I am more likely to take its life than it mine. I will not make this once bold place give way. I walk back from the edge, chastened, alone. And I'll read one more poem for you. This is the final poem from Lion Street, and it's called Starting. And my friend Larry Beckett, who's here tonight, and an absolutely brilliant poet, just a word about Larry, he's been a marvelous poet and songwriter and lyricist for decades and decades. He recently completed an epic cycle called American Cycle, 750 odd pages long, that is one of the most magnificent books of poetry that's ever been written, and is sure to become part of the American canon. Larry kindly reviewed Lion Street in its penultimate phase and had this to say about Starting. He felt that its last four words encapsulated more concisely than he had heard before the California myth. And so I read this with a nod to Larry and thanks for his friendship and great mentorship. I ride the sea on purple curl as night draws near, arms back, head thrust, leading with my jaw. Water drops and rises as we progress, wave and I, till it scatters on sand in turbulent wash. I roll in the froth, stand shaking water from my head like a dog, turn my back on darkening beach and scrubby hills, look out to the sun-puddled sea, slipping between my toes, inviting. I run, then plunge, duck diving under the swells, a locomotive pumping. Each time I come up, the light has drifted further, calling, meet me. I give over to the tide, letting it carry me into the white, marveling at how fine a line the sun paints on wrinkled chalk. In the moment before she slips beneath her covers, I survey the distant black, taste the salt, and start to swim. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark. That was wonderful. I survey the distant black, taste the salt, and start to swim. Just beautiful. And by the way, thanks for the Aussie accent of the lady in stone. Well done, well done. No, the book truly is the San Francisco of the mind, and it embodies it. It holds in place a state of mind back then, something that is no more. Something I think that has been lost, a time past. It's a prayer to that, as you said, and a time past not only for the city, but I think also for you, because you are no longer young, you are no longer living there. And now the city is totally different. North Beach is not what it was. The big air-conditioned buses roll in every morning to take the folks who live now in what used to be seedy parts of the city down 280 to work in Silicon Valley and then bring them back at the end of the day. Meanwhile, nobody can afford to own a home or a place to live in the city. It's gone. And the major businesses that funded so much of the art life in the city are gone. The restaurants and the bars are memory. Some still exist, but when you were reading, I thought of Cafe Trieste and the Spaghetti Factory and Cafe Sport and Vesuvio and the Buena Vista, Yang Sing in Chinatown, Scott's Seafood, just all of them, Tadich's. They mostly are gone. Some are there, but are gone. And you took us there, and thank you so much for that. I really would urge all of us who have not yet had the chance to read the book, do so. It's not a heavy tome, but it is heavy and rich with story and sentiment and feeling, and it's Proustian in a way. À la recherche de temps perdu. It's wonderful. A lost time. Well, that's it, folks. It's been a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. If we were live and in person, I'd ask everybody to give you a big, loud round of applause, both you, Mark, and Linda. Thank you for making our day, our afternoon, and taking us to the places that you did take us. It's just been wonderful. And this continues. We've just begun a new year. Reading number 35 is next month, February 12th. Linda Scheller and Gary Thomas are going to be joining us. In the meantime, if you need any more information, please contact Kent Latham. His email address is in the chat room, or will be, and you can get in hold of him. You also have my email address from the invitation that I sent out to you. Thank you. Linda has put her contact information in the chat room, and I believe Mark has done so too. So if you want to keep connection with these two fine poets, please do so. I know they'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, be sure to like us on Facebook. We'll have up there some images from today. Stay in touch by way of our YouTube channel. And if you'd like to be on our permanent mailing list and are not yet, please follow the link that Jennifer will post in the chat room and has done so. Thank you again. Thank you so much to our poets and to all of you for being with us today. Please stay tuned, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.